They say you never forget the night everything changes. The night when the air feels different, heavy as though the walls themselves know something you don't. For me, that night started out ordinary. Too ordinary. It was early autumn, the kind of evening where the chill sneaks through the cracks in old windows, reminding you how fragile your little shelter really is. My house wasn't much, just a 2-bedroom rental on the edge of town, surrounded by fields and a scattering of trees. Quiet. Isolated. The kind of place I thought would keep me safe from the chaos of the city. That night, I was sprawled on the couch, a half-finished beer sweating on the coffee table, a rerun humming in the background. Nothing remarkable. But then, in the middle of some canned laughter, I heard it. Soft, deliberate, and wrong. A knock. Not on the door. Not on the windows. Somewhere else. I muted the TV and listened. At first I thought it might have been the wind rattling a loose shutter, or maybe the old plumbing groaning through the walls. But then I heard it again, this time clearer. A dull, steady tap from inside the wall by the kitchen. I froze. It lasted only a few seconds, then stopped. Silence stretched out thick and unbearable. My skin prickled. I told myself it was just the house settling. An old home like this was bound to creak and pop. Still, something about it didn't feel right. I turned the TV back on, trying to drown out the unease, but my attention kept drifting to that wall. Every shadow seemed darker, every sound sharper. Around midnight, I finally dragged myself to bed. I double-checked the locks, front door, back door, even the little bathroom window that never quite shut properly. All secure. I laughed at myself for being paranoid and lay down. But just as sleep began to creep in, I heard it again, not knocking this time. Scraping. Slow. Deliberate scraping from the same wall in the kitchen. I sat up, heart hammering in my chest, listening so hard my ears rang. The sound stopped the second I moved, like whoever or whatever was making it knew I was paying attention. I didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, I tried to shake it off. Maybe a squirrel had gotten into the crawl space. Maybe it was pipes contracting in the cold. There were a dozen logical explanations, but none of them erased the image that had burned itself into my mind. Someone standing on the other side of that wall, dragging their fingernails down the plaster just to see if I'd notice. By the third night, the noises had changed. Now it was footsteps, soft, measured, moving from the kitchen to the hallway. I told myself I was dreaming, that the exhaustion was twisting the house's natural groans into something sinister. But then came the smell, faint, sour, like unwashed clothes left in the rain. It seemed to seep through the walls, clinging to the air. I stopped using the kitchen after dark. I started carrying a heavy wrench with me from room to room, clutching it so tight my knuckles ached. And still the noises came. By the end of the week, I wasn't just scared. I was certain someone was in my house. By the fourth night, I stopped lying to myself. It wasn't the old pipes groaning. It wasn't squirrels in the attic. It wasn't my imagination playing tricks on me. Someone was here. The day had been completely normal, but I found myself checking the locks constantly, almost like a compulsion. Each time I turned the key, a brief wave of relief would wash over me, only to be replaced by that familiar creeping dread. By the time dusk settled, the entire house felt hostile, like it was holding its breath, waiting. When I first moved in, I'd installed a cheap motion sensor light over the back door. It had always been a small comfort, a little flash of security in the dark. But that night it came on by itself. I was in the living room, just scrolling on my phone, when the beam cut a sharp white line across the kitchen window. Bright light and movement. I froze. My thumb just hovered over the screen. Slowly, I crept to the window and peered out into the yard. The light was so bright it glared against the glass, washing everything out. For a second, I saw nothing. Then, right at the edge of the glow, something shifted, a dark shape ducking behind the old shed. I whispered, "Hello?" and instantly hated myself for the weakness in my voice. Silence. Complete and utter silence. I backed away from the window, my heart pounding, my palms slick with sweat. I thought about calling the police, but what would I even tell them? That I'd seen a shadow? That I'd heard some noises? They'd probably send a car, maybe circle the block a couple of times and then leave. And whoever was out there, They would know I'd called, so I decided to wait it out. I sat on the couch gripping the heavy wrench I'd started keeping nearby, my eyes flicking back and forth between the kitchen door and the hallway. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. The motion light outside finally went out. The house settled back into an unnerving silence. And then I heard the footsteps. This time they were unmistakable, slow, heavy, deliberate, coming from the kitchen, across the linoleum floor, heading toward the hall. I shot to my feet, my heart hammered against my ribs so hard it actually hurt. I raised the wrench, my voice cracking as I shouted, "I'm calling the cops." The footsteps stopped. Silence. The only sound was my own ragged breathing. I fumbled for my phone, my hands trembling. But before I could even unlock it, I heard another sound. A rattle. The distinct sound of a drawer being opened. My silverware drawer. That was it. I bolted. I ran to the bedroom and slammed the door shut behind me. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn the lock. I dialed 911, whispering frantically into the phone. "Someone's in my house, please, please hurry." The dispatcher's voice was calm, rehearsed, annoyingly so. "Stay on the line with me, sir. Can you lock yourself in a room?" "I am. He's in the kitchen." "Okay. Officers are en route. Do you have a weapon?" I looked down at the cold, heavy wrench in my hand. "Yes." "Stay quiet. Do not engage. We're 3 minutes out." 3 minutes. It felt like a lifetime. On the other side of the door, the footsteps started again, slow, measured. They stopped right outside my bedroom. The knob turned. I threw my weight against the door, gripping the wrench so tight my knuckles went white. The knob rattled again, harder this time. Then came a low laugh, a sound so soft and wet it made my skin crawl. I screamed. And then, just as suddenly as it all began, it stopped. Complete silence. I strained to hear anything over the sound of blood rushing in my ears. No footsteps, no breathing, nothing. "Sir?" The dispatcher whispered through the phone. "Are you safe?" I don't know. "Officers are pulling up now. Stay where you are." Through the thin bedroom curtains, I saw the flashing red and blue lights wash over the walls. I heard car doors slam, shouts from outside. I finally unlocked the door and bolted into the hallway. The kitchen was empty. The back door stood wide open, swinging gently in the night air. The police searched everywhere. The yard, the shed, even the crawl space under the house. They found nothing. No footprints in the damp grass, no sign of forced entry. Nothing was out of place. One of the officers, a tall guy with a shaved head, was scribbling in his notebook. He looked up at me. "You're sure you saw someone?" "I didn't just see him," I insisted. "He was inside the house. He tried the bedroom door." He gave me a look. It wasn't disbelief, not exactly. It was the kind of look they give people they've already written off as stressed or drunk or just plain crazy. "We'll patrol the area for the rest of the night," he said, closing his notebook. "Lock your doors. If you see anything else, call us right away." And then they left. I stood alone in my living room staring at the swinging back door. The whole house felt like it was mocking me. And that's when I saw it. On the inside of the door frame where it should have been clean. A single muddy handprint smeared. It was too big to be mine. And far too fresh to be old. Thanks for watching. If this story sent a chill down your spine, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the dark. Stay safe out there and check your locks. The police stayed until nearly dawn, combing the house from attic to crawl space. They found the broken kitchen window where he'd slipped in, glass scattered like teeth across the floor. They bagged the shards, dusted the frames, and assured me they'd get fingerprints. But their faces told me what their words didn't. Men like him didn't leave prints. Men like him knew how to vanish. When the sun finally rose, the house looked like a crime scene from one of those late-night shows. Yellow tape across the door, powder smudged on every surface, furniture overturned from the chase. And yet it didn't feel like a crime scene. It felt like a grave. I couldn't stay there. I packed a duffel with the essentials, clothes, wallet, phone charger, and checked into a motel on the edge of town. A place with buzzing neon lights and a deadbolt I could see. I thought maybe the distance would help, that the cheap white sheets and the hum of the ice machine would drown out the memory of his smile. But memory doesn't need a house to haunt. Every sound in that motel room became him. The shuffle of footsteps in the hall, the rattle of pipes in the wall, the thud of a door closing 2 rooms down. I barely slept. Every time my eyes shut, I saw him in the closet again, stepping out of the dark with that knife. The police called the next afternoon. No prints, no footprints, no trace of forced entry anywhere except the window I already knew about. It was as if he'd evaporated into thin air. "Do you have any enemies?" the detective asked. "No," I said, voice cracking. "I don't even know who he is." That was the truth, and the worst part. If it had been someone I knew, I could make sense of it. I could point to a face, a reason, some twisted logic. But a stranger? A nameless figure who could slip through locks and laugh in the dark? That was a terror without shape, and you can't fight what you can't define. That night, the motel room phone rang. I stared at it, heart hammering. Nobody knew this number, not even the police. Slowly, I lifted the receiver. Static, then breathing. I slammed it down so hard the plastic cracked. I went to the front desk, demanded to know if anyone had asked for me. The clerk, a bored-looking kid with acne scars, shook his head. Phones don't even work half the time. Probably a misdial. But I knew. I knew that laugh could follow me anywhere. 2 nights later, I woke to a knock at the motel door. 3 sharp raps. Familiar, deliberate. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Another knock. Harder this time. Then silence. I waited an hour, clutching the wrench under the covers, sweat soaking the sheets. When I finally crept to the door and peered through the peephole, the hallway was empty. The next morning, the manager asked me to leave. Other guests are complaining about noise, screaming, crying. He looked at me with pity like I was just another burnout running from my own head. So I left. Back at the house, the police tape still fluttered in the wind. I told myself I'd just grab the rest of my things and crash at a friend house. But the second I stepped inside, the smell hit me. That same sour, mildewed stench that had crept through the walls before. Stronger now. Pervasive. I gagged, pulling my shirt over my nose. The house felt wrong, heavier somehow, like the air itself resisted me. I went straight to the bedroom, threw clothes into a bag. That's when I noticed the closet. Shut again. But not how I'd left it. A new set of scratches marred the inside of the doorframe, long and jagged, carved into the wood. At the bottom, barely visible in the dim light, was a smear of something dark. Blood. Mine? His? I didn't want to know. I backed out of the room, bag half-zipped, and ran for the front door. I didn't care about the rest of my stuff. I didn't care if I never set foot in that house again, but just as I reached the threshold, I heard it. A whisper, low, close, inside my ear. "See you soon." I bolted into the daylight, lungs burning, legs trembling. I didn't look back. For weeks, I bounced between couches, guest rooms, motels. Every place I stayed, the same things followed me. Footsteps in empty halls, phones ringing with dead lines, knocks at the door with nobody waiting. The police stopped taking my calls. My friends stopped answering theirs. Nobody believed me anymore. Nobody except me. And him. Because wherever I went, he went too. And every night, just before I closed my eyes, I heard it. That laugh. By the time autumn surrendered to winter, I was a shell of myself. I barely ate. I barely slept. Every shadow stretched too long. Every noise rang too sharp. I couldn't shake the feeling of being followed. Not just watched, studied. The police case had gone cold. Friends stopped asking if I was okay. Even I had stopped asking myself. Survival became my only routine. New locks, new towns, new beds. But nothing worked. Wherever I went, he was already there. One night, snow blanketed the streets in silence. I was holed up in another motel, 3rd floor, room 312. I'd chosen it carefully. Deadbolt, chain lock, no balcony, only one way in or out. I thought maybe this time I'd outsmarted him. I was wrong. The first sign came just after midnight. The heater sputtered and died, plunging the room into an icy stillness. I pulled the blanket tight around me, trying to convince myself it was just bad wiring. But then the phone rang. 3 rings. Then silence. I let it go. I didn't move, didn't breathe. My heart hammered so loud I swore it would give me away. Minutes later, the knock came, soft, deliberate, 3 times. I slid off the bed, clutching the wrench I still carried everywhere. My breath fogged the air. The knock came again, harder, impatient. The chain rattled against the doorframe. I pressed my eye to the peephole. At first nothing, just the dimly lit hallway stretching empty. Then, slowly, a face leaned into view. Pale, grinning, eyes wide with hunger. He pressed a finger to his lips. Shh. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over the bed. The door handle jiggled violently, the chain straining. He laughed, low and ragged, a sound that made the room spin. Then silence. I crept forward again, wrench raised, and looked through the peephole once more. Empty. The hallway was empty. I turned, scanning the room. The window was still locked. The bathroom door shut. No sign of entry. But my gut twisted because I knew. He was already inside. The closet door. Always the closet. It stood ajar, just a sliver, black as a wound. My breath caught. I raised the wrench, inching forward, every nerve screaming. From inside, a whisper. Miss me? The door exploded outward. He lunged, knife flashing in the dim light. I swung wildly, the wrench connecting with his arm. The blade clattered to the carpet, but he was on me, heavier than he looked, his hands like iron around my throat. I clawed at him, vision tunneling, the room spinning to black. His face hovered above mine, grinning, eyes shining with something worse than madness. Joy. With the last of my strength, I grabbed the wrench and drove it upward. Once, twice, 3 times. Warmth splattered my face. His grip loosened. He staggered back, choking, eyes wide in shock. For the first time, he wasn't laughing. He collapsed onto the floor, twitching once before going still. I lay there gasping, staring at his body. Blood pooled across the carpet, seeping toward me. My whole body shook, but I didn't move. Couldn't move. I waited for him to laugh again, to get up, to prove he wasn't human after all. But he didn't. Hours passed before the police arrived, though in truth, I don't remember calling them. They found me curled in the corner, wrench still in my hand, eyes fixed on the corpse sprawled across the motel floor. They asked questions. I don't remember my answers. They took pictures, bagged evidence, zipped him into a black bag. The detective crouched beside me, voice soft, almost kind. It's over. You're safe now. Safe. The word tasted wrong. Because when they dragged his body past me, I saw his face one last time. And even in death, he was smiling. That was months ago. I'm back in my house now. Or what's left of it. The windows are barred, the doors reinforced with steel. The closet? I nailed it shut. But it doesn't matter. Because some nights, when the wind dies and the dark presses close, I hear it again. Knuckles rapping against the wall. Slow, patient, and a voice low and wet, curling through the silence. See you soon. By the time autumn surrendered to winter, I was a shell of myself. I barely ate. I barely slept. Every shadow stretched too long, every noise rang too sharp. I couldn't shake the feeling of being followed. Not just watched, studied. The police case had gone cold. Friends stopped asking if I was okay. Even I had stopped asking myself. Survival became my only routine. New locks, new towns, new beds. But nothing worked. Wherever I went, he was already there. One night, snow blanketed the streets in silence. I was holed up in another motel, 3rd floor, room 312. I'd chosen it carefully. Deadbolt, chain lock, no balcony, only one way in or out. I thought maybe this time I'd outsmarted him. I was wrong. The first sign came just after midnight. The heater sputtered and died, plunging the room into an icy stillness. I pulled the blanket tight around me, trying to convince myself it was just bad wiring. But then the phone rang. 3 rings. Then silence. I let it go. I didn't move, didn't breathe. My heart hammered so loud I swore it would give me away. Minutes later, the knock came, soft, deliberate, 3 times. I slid off the bed, clutching the wrench I still carried everywhere. My breath fogged the air. The knock came again, harder, impatient. The chain rattled against the doorframe. I pressed my eye to the peephole. At first nothing, just the dimly lit hallway stretching empty. Then, slowly, a face leaned into view. Pale, grinning, eyes wide with hunger. He pressed a finger to his lips. Shh. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over the bed. The door handle jiggled violently, the chain straining. He laughed, low and ragged, a sound that made the room spin. Then silence. I crept forward again, wrench raised, and looked through the peephole once more. Empty. The hallway was empty. I turned, scanning the room. The window was still locked. The bathroom door shut. No sign of entry. But my gut twisted because I knew. He was already inside. The closet door. Always the closet. It stood ajar, just a sliver, black as a wound. My breath caught. I raised the wrench, inching forward, every nerve screaming. From inside, a whisper. Miss me? The door exploded outward. He lunged, knife flashing in the dim light. I swung wildly, the wrench connecting with his arm. The blade clattered to the carpet, but he was on me, heavier than he looked, his hands like iron around my throat. I clawed at him, vision tunneling, the room spinning to black. His face hovered above mine, grinning, eyes shining with something worse than madness. Joy. With the last of my strength, I grabbed the wrench and drove it upward. Once, twice, 3 times. Warmth splattered my face. His grip loosened. He staggered back, choking, eyes wide in shock. For the first time, he wasn't laughing. He collapsed onto the floor, twitching once before going still. I lay there gasping, staring at his body. Blood pooled across the carpet, seeping toward me. My whole body shook, but I didn't move. Couldn't move. I waited for him to laugh again, to get up, to prove he wasn't human after all. But he didn't. Hours passed before the police arrived, though in truth, I don't remember calling them. They found me curled in the corner, wrench still in my hand, eyes fixed on the corpse sprawled across the motel floor. They asked questions. I don't remember my answers. They took pictures, bagged evidence, zipped him into a black bag. The detective crouched beside me, voice soft, almost kind. It's over. You're safe now. Safe. The word tasted wrong. Because when they dragged his body past me, I saw his face one last time. And even in death, he was smiling. That was months ago. I'm back in my house now. Or what's left of it. The windows are barred, the doors reinforced with steel. The closet? I nailed it shut. But it doesn't matter. Because some nights, when the wind dies and the dark presses close, I hear it again. Knuckles rapping against the wall. Slow, patient, and a voice low and wet, curling through the silence. See you soon. They told me it was over. That the man in that cheap motel room, the one with the peeling wallpaper and the single flickering bulb, was the one who'd been tormenting me. They told me I had nothing left to fear. I wanted to believe them. God, I tried so hard. But the thing about nightmares is that even when you finally wake up, their shapes linger in the dark corners of your room. I moved out of the house for good, sold it for half of what it was worth, and I didn't care. I just wanted to bury those memories under someone else's roof, let them become someone else's ghosts. I found a new place, a small apartment high up in the city, top floor, bright windows that let the sun pour in, and security cameras on every corner. It felt safe, controlled, a fortress against the dark. The first few weeks were quiet, blissfully, wonderfully quiet. I slept through the night for the first time in months, the kind of deep, dreamless sleep that feels like a rebirth. I told myself I'd survived, that I was one of the lucky ones who gets to walk away, that the story had an ending and I was in the epilogue. Then the letters started. They appeared without a sound. No return address, no stamps, just slipped silently under my door while I slept. The first one was just a single sheet of paper, clean and white, folded neatly in half. It was blank. Meaningless, I told myself. A mistake. But the second one, 2 days later, wasn't blank. It had a word scrawled across it in jagged, angry handwriting. Soon. I tore it up. My hands were shaking, but I forced a laugh. It had to be a prank. Some bored neighbor or a kid in the building playing a stupid game. I even chuckled about it to myself later, a brittle, empty sound that hurt more than it helped. By the fifth letter, the laughter was long gone. This one wasn't a word, it was a drawing. A simple, crude sketch of a closet door, cracked open just enough to see what was inside. 2 glowing eyes, staring out from the darkness. My blood ran cold. I went straight to the landlord. I demanded to know who had access to my floor, who could possibly be doing this. He was a kind older man who looked at me with pity. He swore up and down that no one could get past the security desk and the cameras without being recorded. We sat together in his stuffy little office and checked the tapes. Hours of footage. We watched every second. There was nothing. No one approaching my door, no one crouching down, no one sliding anything underneath. And yet every morning, without fail, there it was. Another letter. By the 10th letter, I'd stopped sleeping again. The fortress I'd built was crumbling around me. I pushed my heaviest furniture against the door at night. I bought a roll of duct tape and sealed the closet shut, even though I knew, rationally, that it was empty. I kept the lights on until the bulbs burned out one by one, plunging corners of the apartment back into shadow. But no matter what I did, the letters came. Some were just single words that screamed from the page, "Tonight, behind you." Others were more drawings. My own window, cracked open just a sliver, a tall, thin figure standing by my bed while a smaller shape slept. A knife dripping with thick black ink that looked disturbingly like blood. My mind kept flashing back to the body in the motel, to the black bag being zipped up, to the smile that seemed to linger on his face even in death. And a terrifying thought began to bloom in my mind. Had I really killed him? Or had I just killed something that was wearing his skin? One night the sound woke me up. A soft, dry whisper, the sound of paper sliding across the hardwood floor. My chest locked, my throat closed up tight as a fist. The letter lay just inside the door, as if it had passed through solid wood. My hand trembled so badly I could barely pick it up. This one wasn't a word. It wasn't a drawing. It was a photograph. It was a picture of me, asleep in my own bed. The timestamp in the bottom corner read, 3:14 a.m. Last night, I dropped the photo like it had burned my hand. My stomach turned to ice. A cold dread, heavier and more absolute than anything I had ever felt, washed over me. He wasn't outside. He wasn't waiting in the shadows of the city. He was here. Adrenaline hit me like a lightning strike. I grabbed a heavy wrench I kept in my toolbox and tore through the apartment. I threw open every door, ripped back the shower curtain, checked under the bed. Nothing. No broken locks, no open windows, no sign of forced entry. It was impossible. Finally, I came to the closet. The duct tape I'd stretched across the frame hung loose, torn clean through the middle. My heart hammered against my ribs. I pressed my ear against the cool wood of the door. At first there was only silence, the frantic pulse in my ears. Then faintly, I heard it. Breathing, slow, patient. A rhythmic, quiet inhale and exhale from the other side. And beneath it, a voice. A low, wet whisper, curling through the tiny crack in the doorframe. "Miss me?" The wrench slipped from my numb fingers and clattered to the floor. My knees gave out. I stumbled back, scrambling away as the closet door began to creak open inch by painstaking inch. The smell hit me first. Sour. Rotting. The same stench that had haunted the old house, the motel room, every place I'd run to. It was the smell of decay, the smell of him. Then came the laugh. It wasn't outside. It wasn't in my head this time. It was inside the room, right here, right now, and that's where I'll leave you. And because maybe I'm still on the floor of that apartment, frozen, listening to that laugh echo in the small space. Maybe the closet door has already swung wide open, and maybe his impossible smile is the last thing I'll ever see. Or maybe I'm writing this from somewhere else, somewhere far away, still running, still hiding, still waiting for the next whisper, the next letter, the next knock at the door. All I know for certain is this: you don't kill something like him. You only slow him down. And sooner or later, he always comes back. Thanks for listening to my story. If you enjoy tales that linger in the dark, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Stay safe out there and always, always check your closets. Atmospheric, slightly shaky voice as if confiding a terrible secret. I always thought the worst part of fear was the anticipation. You know, that breathless silence just before the jump scare, the quiet darkness right before the whisper. But I was wrong. I was so wrong. The absolute worst part of fear is when it never ever ends. After what happened that night in the apartment, I ran. Again. I don't even remember packing, it's all a blur. One moment I was just staring at that closet door, frozen. The next I was in my car, the highway stretching out into nothing but darkness, swallowed by my headlights. I just drove. I drove until the car was screaming for gas, until the needle was buried on empty. I ended up in some nameless, forgotten town. I checked into the cheapest, grimiest motel I could find. No phone, no TV, just 4 peeling walls and a bed that smelled of damp and despair. I thought, maybe if I stripped everything away, if I became a ghost, he couldn't follow me. But that's the thing about fear. It doesn't need a key. It was almost dawn when I heard it again. That knock, 3 slow, deliberate raps on the wall, right above my headboard. I just sat there in the dark, my heart trying to beat its way out of my chest, clutching a wrench I'd grabbed from the car. I waited for something more, for the door to splinter, for footsteps. But there was nothing, just silence. A heavy, suffocating silence that was louder than any scream. I told myself it was the pipes. It's always the pipes, right? That's what you tell yourself. But then, from the other side of that thin wall, I heard his voice. Just 2 words. You can't run. I clamped my hands over my ears, rocking back and forth on that disgusting mattress, whispering like a prayer. Not real, not real, not real. But when I finally forced my eyes open, the letters were there, on the bed. Dozens of them scattered across the sheets like dead leaves. Drawings, words, photos, all the things he'd sent before, but now, so many more. My face from every angle, sleeping, screaming, hiding. I staggered back, my mouth completely dry, the room spinning around me. The letters fluttered to the floor like a flock of dead birds. And then, the closet door creaked open. This time I didn't wait. I ran. I just ran. The motel clerk, this tired-looking man with hollow eyes, he swore no one else had checked in that night. He swore no one had entered my room, that the locks were untouched. But I knew. I drove again. Farther this time. I crossed state lines. I drove past the point of reason. Every mile I put between me and that laugh. It should have felt like a victory. But it didn't. It felt like I was just dragging heavier and heavier chains, because deep down a part of me already knew the terrifying truth. There was no distance that was far enough. There was no lock strong enough. He wasn't following me. He was with me. That was a month ago. I've stopped trying to escape. What's the point? Running doesn't help, the cops don't help, the locks don't help, so I've come here instead, to write it all down, to document every noise, every knock, every scrape in the dark. My new theory is if I can't kill him, maybe I can trap him in these words. Maybe when you read this, when you hear this, you'll be the one to carry him instead of me. Because that's how he works, isn't it? He's not a common burglar. He doesn't break into houses. He breaks into minds. He waits in the walls, in the closets, in all the quiet, forgotten places where your fear grows fat and complacent. Maybe he's reading this over my shoulder right now, grinning that rotten, wet grin of his. Maybe he's behind your door tonight, just waiting for you to fall asleep so he can whisper, shh. I don't know how much longer I have. I can feel it getting closer. But I do know this. When the knock comes for you, and it will come, don't answer it. Don't listen. And whatever you do, don't look. Because the second you acknowledge it, the second you do, he'll know you believe. And once you believe, he's already inside. I have to finish this now. I hear him, that scraping sound in the wall, that sour, sweet smell in the air, that laugh, soft and wet, curling through the darkness towards me. The closet door, it's opening, and this time, I know. This is the last time, the last knock, the last breath, the last story, my story.